Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. I've been thinking about it, that the onset of the year 2020 on us, we are already in June, and I think majority of the world will want this year to get over as soon as possible, sooner if not than later. Well, this has been a year, it's designated as 2020, but I wonder at times whether it is giving us a hint for a 2020 wisdom to exercise. So if you look at the year, it started with good promise. And since then, we have had a major disaster around the world in the name of coronavirus, which has evaporated trillions of dollars from the market. Millions of people are jobless. Economies are destroyed. And, poor and middle class people will take a lot of time to recover. As the saying goes, if you're playing a game of soccer, you need one goal to win the match. But if you're down by a goal, you have to score two. That is the kind of challenge the global economy is facing. And on top of that, we had a real tragedy of George Gray, 8 minutes, 46 seconds of torture in which he lost his life. Now, the cop who was responsible for this and the three others who were with him, they didn't realize, or were they suffering from a mad rush of blood in their head, that they didn't realize that their action had a major consequence around it. They were not invincible. If they thought that hubris will play, that they are the cops and nothing will happen to them, because in the past, several cops have been acquitted of all charges. So this is not the first instance in which a Black young man was killed in the manner that he died. We had a case here in Staten Island, where one big Black guy was saying, "I can't breathe," and 4 people ultimately ended up choking him. So there was a reason for the sadness, the anger, the frustration that came about. But as it always happens, politicians take advantage of that. And then there is a natural upsurge or reaction to be heard, seen, and the fact that we will not tolerate this anymore. So to discuss this psychology and the anatomy of riots and rioters, because as it is, the economy had lost a lot. The biggest sufferers in these riots that have happened across 23 major cities in the US is again medium and small scale enterprises whose shops, establishments have been burnt to ground and they can never come back. So to understand the process, we have to dive into a couple of questions. One is, do these rioters indulge in violence as part of a strategy? Or they just don't care who dies or who gets hurt? How should the politicians respond? What is their role at this point in time? Let the mayhem continue, or control or restrict it from further damaging the scenarios? What ought to be the response of the society at large? To discuss these matters in greater detail, I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Deepak Nandi. Nandiji, good morning and welcome to the show. And you are a psychiatrist, you are an entrepreneur, you are a businessman, and you are a psychiatrist of a great fame because you have been practicing this for a very long time. So throw some light on this matter. How does the protest turn into a riot? Or as the Attorney General Barr said on Thursday, that they have evidence that anti-social elements like Antifa and many others stepped in and created a confusion in which the protest got subdued because of the outer influence of non-protest related people to take advantage of the gullibility of the mob. Your thoughts?
Good morning. It's a great way to give the start. Most people are followers in the United States and in all over the world. It is some antisocial elements who are opportunists and who take advantage of such situation. It was a big tragedy that this wonderful black gentleman was slaughtered to death very unnecessarily, and the frustration of the police officer, I don't know why he ended up killing him when the guy was already handcuffed and could have been easily put in the car. It is absolutely shameful that such an event happened and the whole nation grieves over it, and we need to first grieve over that. But having said that, and on top of it, 3 other policemen ended up aiding and abetting, and they were correctly charged for not doing anything about it and were silent observers while he was being slaughtered to death. But having said this, we have to differentiate between protesters, between rioters, and looters. These are different shades of gray. And what happened is the protesters always want to protest and express their anger against such injustice, social injustice. And President Donald Trump, Attorney General William Barr, always verbalized that they have the full right to do so. But what they do not have the right is to end up rioting, leading to violence and leading to looting. What happened is that organizations like Antifa is being constantly fed by left-wing billionaires. They fund this organization. The academia is involved. The rich billionaires are involved, and they are always ready to take advantage of this situation and gaslight the situation into a way that it ends up in violence and looting happens and the whole nation goes up in flame. Such is the hatred for President Donald Trump from the left. We noticed it right from day one, the day he was sworn in, January 20, 2017. They were already spying on him, which came out false. So there is a continuous thrust of hatred, a planned organization, and we see this fire throughout the nation. We see currently 40 million Americans unemployed, 25% of the population is unemployed. People are just trying to come out from this tragedy of COVID-19, and they found the most perfect opportunity to take advantage of this situation. The people who got arrested in New York on a federal crime are 2 lawyers, one a Princeton graduate and law school NYU, one of the top-notch law school. They were caught throwing bombs at the police cars. And such was the fast action of the US attorney in the Brooklyn that they were indicted within 24 hours. The US attorney, Richard Donahoe, so appropriately and so correctly charged them with crime within 24 hours. And they are facing over 25 years in prison. So we are finding such highly educated, Ivy League educated, top-notch law school lawyers doing this act of violence and crime. So this cannot be spontaneous. This is well planned, very well organized, fed from the top, and the opportunists have taken advantage of the complete situation, and we're actually looking for such an opportunity, hoping and praying, and we will, I pray it does not happen, but I am afraid that this will continue up until the November election. But
you said it very correctly that perhaps the rioting and everything, Antifa, these are anti-Trump movements. It's a liberal, extreme liberal, hardcore liberals who call themselves anti-fascists, but they are more fascistic in their approach than those who are opposing. Having said that, I totally agree with you on this matter that a lot of opposition to Trump derives from the fact that he's a much hated guy. But we'll come to that later on that issue. But the important part is that how prepared were they? That, obviously Mr. Gray's killing was not a planned event. But the moment that event took place, the sadness, the tragedy of the video came out, and immediately the mob was in place. The protesters were thrown in the back, and then suddenly the violence erupted. We have all followed the violence very closely because it happened in our neighborhood in New York City and other places where people were ready with bricks in various corners. And if on Thursday evening when Blasio was giving his speech, I mean, he's been totally disappointing from that point of view. But you saw the whole crowd was giving the sign to turn their backs on him. So it is a remarkably coordinated effort. The violence, every stage has been planned. You can't go on violence all through the time. Then you force the police to kneel with you. There were even National Guard people were forced to kneel in a sign of solidarity. And one of the things that happens is that when people of this kind of a movement, it's a global movement to weaken you and I and the system that we live in under law and order, is to make law and order feel guilty, make the armed forces feel guilty about what they are doing, in terms of law and order. So now you heard that on Thursday, we heard about the fact that the liberals and left people are asking for defunding the police. Now, just imagine for a moment, if police is defunded and, this kind of a thing happens, it is open loot for everybody. Who controls whom? And that's the point which I'm trying to drive at, that every liberal politician, whether it is Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, instead of asking for peace to return, they were telling Trump to be a unifier. And that time the irony hit me very strongly, that these are the people who hate Trump, even though Nancy Pelosi said that I'm a Catholic and I don't hate anybody, but she epitomizes hatred for Trump. Her whole body language epitomizes hatred for Trump. As a result of which, if I know that you hate me, how will I ever accept your appeal for friendship? It doesn't happen like that. So asking Mr. Trump to be the unifier, when your supporters have been trying to burn the White House down, and people have been showing his dead, chopped head, it makes matters worse. Do you think that the rhetoric of the left has made the violence more worse, or have they tried to calm down things? Because I'm disappointed with Governor Cuomo. He said, who says protesters have to be peaceful? Now, that's not a sign of asking or requesting for peace. Your thoughts?
I fully agree with you, but I think I will never forget what my father used to always say, always follow the money. Lakshmi ka karan hota hai sab kuch. So if you follow the money, President Trump came as a disruptor. This Antifa movement is funded by the billionaires. How the billionaires make the money?
Right.
By selling defense equipment, by selling drugs in the United States, which is 1,000 times more priced than rest of the world. Mm-hmm. President Trump fought against the price of the drug companies. Mm-hmm. President Trump fought against the defense equipment getting funded where a toilet seat cost $25,000. Because he was fighting against this, the generals got rattled. General Jim Mattis looks like a saint, but actually he is being fed by the lobbyist. The lobbyist in Washington, D.C. gets all the contract for the retired generals and the retired admirals. Then they subcontract out this contract to other people, keeping a huge margin for themselves. This is what Trump wanted to break. And because he wanted to break, these are the people who do fundraising for the legislators, whether it is congressman or senator, on a daily basis. Every congressman, I dare to say, and every senator is funded on a everyday basis in Washington, D.C., where they have a fundraising, and these lobbyist people representing these different defense companies come and pay them. And they collect billions of dollars in their war chest, which they get to keep on their retirement. This is the single most important secret that nobody knows. All fundraising that congressmen and senators do, once they retire from politics, that becomes their retirement money. So, and who is funding them? All these defense contractors. Who are these defense contractors? These generals, admirals. This is the deep state. Who is funding the Antifa? This lobbyist and these billionaires who is at the end of the food chain, like George Soros, who is making money. This is the challenge we have. And who are the ones who end up dying are the small business people. The small, common, ordinary small business people are the ones whose shop got looted, are the ones whose shop got, now they will take another 2 years, both psychological, morally, and financially to get the strength back. But who ended up benefiting are these billionaires. Because why? Because they will keep funding in a hope to make sure that there is no law and order, there is chaos in the street, people get frustrated, and in this attempt, President Trump loses the election. That is the deep secret that nobody talks about. Because what lies underneath, I've studied it very deeply. And the root cause is always follow the money and find out who is funding it and why they are funding it. The billionaires are funding it not because they are great spiritual Mahatma Gandhis of the world. They are funding it so that their billions become trillions. And how do they do that? By making sure the lobbyist organizations survive. And who are these lobbyists? The admirals and the generals. When Jim Mattis comes and criticizes President Trump, he is doing it not because he loves the army. That is absolutely crap. He is doing it because all the other generals will not be able to do the lobbying efforts if President Trump comes back the second time. And that is their biggest fear. And the media, whether it is the right or the left, are not talking about it. And
tell me, you have been very vocal and very assertive about the deep state and the lobbies and how the whole thing is played and orchestrated. So that's what your thrust of your argument is, and I think I see the point in it. I do see the point in it. However, what is also important is, and this is the time when I want to know that Mr. Trump, whatever whether he does something, he's damned. He doesn't do anything, he is damned. So he is in a Hobson's choice kind of a scenario. I mean, if he does something, people will say, why did he do it? If he doesn't do, he didn't take any action. So he gets attacked on both sides of the fence. But calling the armed forces or giving the call to National Guard, was it required? And in the sense that I do recognize the need for discipline, because as it is, the economy is in a spin because of the coronavirus damages that have happened to the system. And on top of it, if you have the looting and burning, it exacerbates the whole economic decline because billions of dollars are lost again. As it is, those people were trying to survive. And now they are going to become even more hurt. They are going to be hurt even more. But calling the armed forces, for which he's being criticized, how fair is that? I mean, it's a deeper melee in the system that US has race problem of such magnitude that every time a black man is killed in a police shooting, people begin to brandish the statistics that more blacks are likely to die out of a white police or white, whatever it is. So statistics is quoted that more blacks die, more blacks suffer, more black. So it is all based on the pain, the suffering on account of inequality, less opportunity. And Trump addressed that because in his 3 years of economy until coronavirus hit, the black unemployment was at its lowest level. The Latino unemployment was at its lowest level. So he did something. He dared the blacks. What do you have to lose by voting for me? You haven't got much from the Democratic Party. So the chasing the money is critical. And you are totally right about that. I agree. Because eventually somebody's vested interest plays the game, and the gullible amongst those are the ones who are exploited. So the point of the matter here is that he has been criticized by Mattis and a couple of his own defense secretary, actually, Mr. Esper, who said that he didn't agree with that. So there is a thing in democracy, they say that protest is perhaps one of the many legs of democracy that keeps democracy alive and protest. But this is not a protest. This is a riot. And that's the element which is important because billions of dollars have been damaged. How have the Democrats reacted to this? Joe Biden said nothing. Nobody is saying anything except president has to do this while you hate him. That I find it very confusing for me.
Again, you're absolutely correct, but I like to go deeper, and I always like to postmortem an issue. You have to understand that everybody agrees, both parties agrees, that protest in a civil way is rightful. Mm-hmm. But the opportunist legislators and the politicians are being played by the billionaires in a way who fund their election campaign on a daily basis to make sure that no opportunities are lost. And President Trump, who is basically a disruptor, who basically just only is extremely patriot because he's a billionaire himself. He only thinks about how to make America great again. And he loves America. But these people, neither they have the name recognition, nor do they have the power. So their only goal in life is how to make sure Trump loses the election. But unfortunately, fortunately, it is going to backfire. Most common people like law and order. President Richard Nixon in 1968 won his re-election based on law and order. Most people, most independents, most Republicans, and I don't care what the poll says, because last time they also polled, even the night of his election, kept saying he's going to lose. So he is going to get the support of the common Americans. Once they close the curtain, they're going to go and vote for him because they like peace, law, and order. The billionaires who are corrupt, who want to fund this defense lobbyists, who want to fund on behalf of the defense contractors, will not succeed. We are seeing all these generals, and if you look at the back skeleton of these generals, they all are lobbyists. They all get the contracts, billions of dollars of what contracts, and they have been ripping off the country, United States, for the last 50 years. The same thing with the drug companies. Why did now Lancet, one of the #1 medical publication, have to pull their articles today that they misrepresented the hydroxychloroquine? Do you know why? Because hydroxychloroquine costs 10 cents. They would rather sell a drug which costs $1,000 and not 10 cents. Right. So to make the research bad, guys like Fauci, Anthony Fauci, because he is representing these drug companies, make sure that they badmouth the drugs in such a way that you cannot go and get the drug in a retail pharmacy. So this is against a sitting president. So imagine the power of the deep state in this country. The deep state is very afraid that if Trump comes back the second time, he's going to demolish all these lobbyist groups, all these drug companies in a way that they will have marginal profits.
But that's a you have been remarkably aggressive about the drug and the
I'm
lobbying.
speaking the truth by example.
I mean, it's true because Mr. Trump also, I think, the first thing he did when he came to power was to prevent congressmen and senators from becoming lobbyists. Yeah. He passed that, one of the ethical reforms that he did there, and it is true. I mean, I belong to the school of thought that the liberal democratic agenda got completely disrupted because the unexpected victory of Mr. Trump. Just imagine if Trump had lost and Hillary Clinton had come to power, there's so much of expose that is going on, we would never have known. I mean, think about it like this, that how, that Rosenstein fellow, look at his testimony. He says that what I know now, I would never have signed the FISA thing. So I totally agree with you, and that there was a definite conspiracy to oust him, remove him from the office. And the fact of the matter remains is that he definitely ended or upended the liberal dream to a great extent. So think about it like this. 2 Supreme Court judges are already conservatives. So now conservative judges' appointments and appeals court appointment and the changes to the structure, which President Obama had said that I will fundamentally change the way the country is. He's making America great again. So the restoration, the clash between the disruptor Trump and disruptor of another kind, Mr. Obama and his left party, Trump has won. And you are absolutely right, and I'm of the same opinion, that if Trump wins the second term, they can kiss the baby goodbye, the liberal baby goodbye, because he will have installed practices that would lead to greater economic growth. So that comes the other issue very importantly here, is that deep state is there. Now, Trump has one thing in his favor though. So you know the market very well, and just as I understand the market well, market was expecting a correction because 3 years of boom run, the market was fearing and expecting a correction. A lot of technical analysts were, predicting, but the damn market was not going down at all. It was going further up and further up. So coronavirus derailed the market, and then this Gray's murder that happened by police, the riots that have happened. Fortunately for Trump, nobody can blame him for these 2 events. And that is going to be his savior in the debates with Joe Biden. And people will realize, there is time for people to realize that none of this was caused by Trump. What Trump did was economic boom. And thus, it is important to remember that he has a chance, better chance. Joe Biden is not a great candidate. On the contrary, he is lucky that he doesn't have to speak because of quarantine. Had he been a speaking tour, we would have known the true Joe Biden that it's there. But my question is deeper still. The entire riot and protest that has happened is race relations. Now, if you notice one thing, Joe Biden, Democrats and Republicans, they are the 2 parties who have run the country. So when Democratic Party, who are champions of the black, 90% of the blacks vote for Democratic Party, what have they really done to eliminate race relationships or improve relationships in a better way? And that reminds me of a dialogue that my managing director, chairman, friend of a bank had, Lalu Yadav. Cut the story short, he said, Karmakar साहब, हमको आप 5,000 करोड़ देंगे तो मैं गरीबों को जो दूंगा, हमारा constituency is happy because he's poor. He will vote for me only if he remains poor. If he gets rich, he will not vote for me. That's the argument I remembered, that Democrats have played perhaps the plantation mentality of keeping blacks as you are. Don't worry, we will do things for you. And that's what has created a dependency. And the blacks have felt that they have been taken for a ride. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you have said a lot of things, and it will take some time to unpack all the things. But I
Fine.
can, as a psychiatrist, I can definitely say the difference between President Donald Trump and Joe Biden is President Donald Trump is a leader. He's an independent leader. He listens to all these advisors, but then he makes his own decision, which is rooted with the law of principles of dharma. And the principles of dharma that Trump has, I love the United States of America. I don't care losing my billions. I don't care losing everything. I want to do the best for America. The difference with Joe Biden, he's a Katputli. You know what is a Katputli? He's a puppet. He yields control. He already said, I will have a whole group of advisors, and whatever they will say, I'm going to do that. So that is the difference in a sentence between Donald Trump and Mr. Joe Biden. Now, whether he has the neuropsychological deficits prefrontally, that he cannot make decisions of his own and has lost the self-confidence at that age because of his neuropsychological disease, that he needs to get the feedback of the advisors and use that as the decision, or is it based on money? And I'm afraid it is based on money. My gut tells me it is all controlled by the billionaires from the penthouses of Manhattan, who is basically funding the whole movement, who basically is saying that if Joe Biden becomes the president, we can get anything done. We'll be able to sell the toilet bowl to our defense, not for $25,000, but for $250,000. We'll be able to raise the cost of the drug and we'll print the money. We'll become the best friend of China. President Trump was the first guy. Biden kept saying, even as late as February, come on, man, China is our friend. Trust me, it is not Biden. It is the preachings and the orders that he is getting from the top. That lies the big difference between President Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Here is a leader. Does this nation want a leader who just loves the country and is not afraid to take the risk, and is able to call a spade, and is able to make hard decisions so that the common people benefits? Just pre-COVID, pre-coronavirus, the unemployment rate has come down to 3%. The unemployment rate among the Black African population, Afro-American population came down to 5%. Mm-hmm. President Obama and Joe Biden was not able to do that. He did criminal justice reform. He did everything possible that he could. There is a difference in psychiatry between empathy and empathic action. Empathy is like, I feel for you. But I feel for you. Oh, you are so sounding so depressed. And an empathic action is, I see you, I immediately bring you food, I ask you where are you going to sleep at night and make you a bed. Most of us Indians grew up with empathic actions all around us. We saw our friends and families helping us out without talking about it 1,000 times. These guys, they only talk about empathy, the Democratic Party, without doing the empathic action. Trump believes in action, and the laws of Hinduism is action is the best offering or the best flowers that you can give to Lord Krishna, because action proves 1,000 times more than words.
I'm very glad you referred to the action part, and I'm very glad that you brought the dharma part of it, because there is a very interesting concept that is evolving in the minds of some of the thinkers, is that we have not had any new structure of governance for a very long time. So we have had monarchy replaced by X, then came people's choice, then communism, socialism, democracy. And as we all know, it has been said that democracy is the best of the worst available. However, you use the word dharma. That dharma is our way of life, the Sanatana Dharma way of life. And dharma has one thing very powerful about it. It is non-discriminatory. It's non-judgmental. It's natural laws. It's about you and I as individuals. It's about acceptance. It's about more than tolerance is acceptance. And it's about doing good unto others. So while many texts will say, help neighbors and help the poor, but it actually is our faith that enunciates that principle. So the question is it time for India to aggressively talk about return to dharmic way of governance? Well, that's what is very powerful to do, because at this point in time, we know, I mean, we have talked about it in this very program, that something that we learned, where every disaster is an opportunity and every defeat is a learning. So like coronavirus has taught us one thing, that in nature, this nature part of it is common for everybody. It's just as coronavirus was race neutral, color neutral, caste neutral, country neutral, religion neutral. It affected everybody, rich and poor, young and old, relatively speaking. However, that's exactly what Sanatana Dharma is all about. In nature, nature doesn't say if there is a 16-inch, a 16-inch nor'easter coming, Upper Brookville, Port Washington, Brooklyn, everybody gets hurt equally. Some an inch more or some an inch less. So nature doesn't discriminate. It respects. Is it time for the world to begin to look at dharmic way of doing things? Because intuitively, we all know, intellectually, we all know what's the right thing to do, correct? And we all know also very clearly that there may or may not be the most right answer, because there is always a better way to do something. That's what our practices are all about. That's how we Hindus became seekers for a better answer, not the rightmost answer. Because there can be always a better answer to whatever is right today. So is it time for, so if Sharia people say Sharia is needed in the US for gender equality and race equality, I would say it's time for us to begin talk about the dharmic laws and talk about it as a matter of principle. Be as you are, but you can follow a dharmic process even as a Christian or a Muslim. Dharma has no religious epithet to it. It's the practice. Thank you for introducing the concept of dharma here. And I said what I said. How do you think we should bring this concept to Trump and Democratic Party? Yeah. That you cannot talk about democratic rights without responsibility.
So I will say this. The dharmic way of life has been first written in the Vedas 5,000 years back, after the saints had meditated and had processed for thousands of years what is right and what is wrong. Dharma has to do with the right way of life, the right actions. It was psychologist and psychiatrist like Carl Jung, a very famous German psychiatrist, way back in 1905, described what is called the collective unconscious. The collective unconscious is something that you are born with, that you know that you are supposed to suck your mother's milk up until the first year of your life, and the mother knows that first 1 year she cannot let go the child even for 1 day, otherwise the child might end up depressed. Certain principles, these are called the collective unconscious principles. So we do not read voluminous books. One can automatically, instinctually know what is the right thing and what is the wrong thing. We all know what the protesters do are the right thing, what the rioters and looters do is the wrong thing.
Right.
Now, what has happened, the dharmic way of life pretty much is universal. It is these greedy billionaires and the rich people who have always corrupted this process. It is this money force behind, I dare say, have corrupted the dharmic process, and people have stopped appreciating the right and the wrong. And because of the greed element, because of the greed element, they start talking the wrong things. They start supporting the wrong cause and start taking advantage of the opportunities. We as Indians know exactly what I'm saying. This is exactly what Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also facing in India. He doesn't need anything. The guy doesn't need, he doesn't have a house of his own. His net worth would be less than 10 lakh rupees. But the guy, no matter what he does, is shown that he is as if trying to do things for himself. Why do the left media do that? Remember who these billionaires are funding, and always go to the Warren Buffetts, to the George Soros. These are the people who are funding, who are making sure that the left are used as a Katputli, that the legislators get money on a daily basis in their war chest, in their election campaign fund, and they are ready to say anything. A CNN journalist is ready to say anything because he needs that $10,000 at the end of the month. Otherwise, he will not be able to feed his family. It is this money which controls them to say whatever they want to say, whatever they are told to say, not because they believe in it or not because their collective unconscious is telling them that is the wrong thing, but because they are so dependent. And dependency brings the worst out of human being. Independency brings out the best of a human being.
And that is the very important part which I referred to earlier on, the plantation mentality. The Democratic Party has always treated the blacks as a vote bank. And they have told them, worry not, we will give you whatever you want. Just keep voting for us. And that's where the challenge comes in, because those blacks who are conservatives, who are part of Republicans, they are attacked as Tom Jones or whatever, Uncle Tom Jones or whatever. So the question here is, these prosperous blacks, they don't want to be known as Uncle Tom's Cabin people. They want to break through and establish their own identity. All the sportsmen, black sportsmen, musicians, and those who have become successful and they are wealthy, they don't like the Democratic Party because they are trying to impose dependence on them. Now, there's another very important part here is the fact that the Democratic Party has only two mandates, has basic plank of their electoral support is unfettered immigration and giving everything free, which is what appeals to a normal voter. I mean, Democratic Party has understood very well that between Deepak Nandi, Vibhuti Jha, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, everybody has one vote. There is no difference. So it is very easy to pander and try to make appeasing statements that I will do all this for you for free. Who will pay for this? You know who will pay for that. But they don't take into account the fact that what if those people who have to pay unnecessarily for things that they need not, they will leave the country. They have never thought about that aspect. As it is, a lot of corporate money was sitting outside until Mr. Trump brought the foreign money back in here, the money the corporates were holding outside. So the important part here again is that is the Democratic Party plank, the economic plank? They have no economic plank actually. If you look at their economic policy, so what must Trump supporters do to ensure that the race relations come down? And race relations are tension-filled because of the slave history of the blacks in this country, impoverished history, dependence on state, and the fact that they were poor, they suffered from poverty, and whatever else. They have not emerged out of the shackles of this. And that's exactly what the liberals do in India. You refer to Mr. Modi. He's encountering a similar challenge from the left there, who again, Rahul Gandhi represents Alu idhar se dalo, sona udhar niklega. So when you have that kind of a policy prescriptions coming from the left, it creates a false narrative about working. And that's the problem which America is facing. Everybody wants to come to America, despite the racist tag to it, because this country makes you rich. Nobody wants to come to America to remain poor. Everybody comes because there is an opportunity. And that's where the opportunity is losing, is going away in the hands of the Democrats. And that's where you see the race relations are so much full of tension in this part of the world.
Yes. See, but the African American population is slowly becoming intelligent. They are slowly understanding what the agenda is, because an African American family is seeing that a chartered school provides better education than a public school. They are seeing that education is the most important key of success for their children. They are seeing that the Democratic Party, who is in cahoot with the teachers union, only wants public school and not charter school, where excellence survives. They are seeing that their kids will do better if they go to better colleges. So I dare say that if President Trump is given the second chance, and which I think he will definitely get to outsmart these people, he would try to make this nation, in spite of all the opposition, a land of law and order, a land of opportunities, a land where people feel safe, where every neighborhood is safe, and where people are not scared of riots, of looters. So I think the opposition have tried all the tricks from their bag. First, they brought up the stupid Russian hoax, which ended up as a hoax. They tried to spy on his campaign. That ended up a farce. They tried to impeach. That ended up in a farce. Then they tried to say the coronavirus hydroxychloroquine does not work, which ended up in a farce in Lancet. We are seeing again and again that President Trump, whatever general statements he has made, has come out to be the correct path. Even one or two Republicans who have opposed him, like today Republican Lisa Murkowski, because she is an independent and she is fighting for her life to win the re-election, so she had to pander to the independent voters and made this statement, I don't know who I'm going to vote for. So all in all, President Trump has been able to change 250 federal judges, young federal judges, who will have conservative values. And if he wins the election, he will have a Supreme Court of 7-2, or almost. It is 5-4 now by the time he finishes.
Is that what is making the Democrats very desperate?
That is
because at this point in time, as you know, you are a very strong Trump supporter, as I am also a Trump supporter, because I believe in performance, I believe in delivery. I don't believe in giving things free to people, because that actually weakens you. Performers don't fear having to do better. But the important part here is, again, is that the entire race relationships, nobody, Sundar Pichai, for example, of the Google chief, made an impassioned appeal of moment of silence. He called it in the letter to his employees, and he said every employee voluntarily could observe a silence of 8 minutes 46 seconds, which was the time taken for the death of George Gray. My question is, and he gave $12 million to organizations that support or fight for the injustice against Blacks. I'm taking this to a step a little further.
No, can I just interrupt and put it is the same Google guy who does not care about the subordination of China and is ready to follow all the laws of China for a market penetration, knowing very fact that millions of Chinese Muslims are currently in entrapment camp and there is no human rights in China. This is the same guy. See how deceitful he is. That is why I say it is the billionaires who always try to take advantage of the situation and are opportunists, and you need to go in depth to understand what is the real motivation. His real motivation is he saw how Facebook's employees walked out because of Zuckerberg. So he made this thing. Not that because he's a saint. He's a scumbag of the highest order. And I dare say, being an Indian, he's a scumbag. He always opposes that without opposing the China.
Now that's the important part, because that's what I'm trying to say, that this is the moment of truth. And we are living in a world where, we are interconnected with each one of us in a matter of moment. As a result of which, these farcical gestures, for Google to give $12 million, great gesture of solidarity with Black Lives Matter. But I would have expected Google to be a global company as it is, to have been more forthcoming, to say, yes, Black lives matter. So do animal lives. Why do we kill animals for trophies? Why do we hunt down animals that are helpless people to kill? We are also against killing of Hindus in minorities in Pakistan and other countries. We are against killing of Kashmiri Pandits in this part of the world. This is where I feel that the business of millionaires and billionaires that you are talking about and the politicians lose out. So think about it. All the famous Indian congressmen who chided India, passed resolutions against India for CAA and Section 370 and Article 370 and 35A, those people are looking stupid today. Same St. Louis in Minneapolis, that tiny little place filed a resolution against India for Muslim abuse. They must be looking silly today. And this is the moment for us to showcase and tell them, fix your own house first before you attack others. But this is the moment for us to indulge in our own dharmic way, to bring our thought in front of them. Because believe it or not, I have become a believer in dharma. I have become a believer in our way of life because I see the inconsistency and farce of others. Because we don't indulge in farce. For us, tomorrow will be determined on what I do today. Whether you go to heaven or hell is a function of being here, right? What we do to people. It's not that you kill somebody and you, in the name of God, and you go to heaven and you dance and make merry with somebody else. That's the point which I'm trying to focus on, is that going forward, as we live in America, we owe a lot to this country for our welfare. We are immigrants to this country. Economic growth is a function of discipline and absence of chaos. Growth doesn't happen in chaos. Growth happens in a disciplined way, following the process. And that's where my concern is, that if the leftist people bring about their socialist model, it is going to hurt America. Final word on that.
Yes, you summed it up very well. I would like to say that most of our audience here knows the different shades of gray. They know the right from wrong. Most of them lead a dharmic way of life, and they can see who really wants to live. We have all come to America for peace, for opportunities to follow the law, to make sure we live our life with law and order, and to make sure our children does better than what we did. Those are our simple aspirations, and we should not become Katputlis to any party who just basically wants to take advantage of us and to make sure that we do not have a brain to think. For that reason, I believe that we all can think independently, believe independently, and make the best decision which will make this country a heavenly country to live in. America is resilient. America is strong. We love this country. This country is going to come back. Like President Trump says, in the next quarter, you will see this country is going to come back. The stock market is already 26,000 plus. It is forward thinking. It always is a good indicator that everything will come back in the fullest.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for putting this across. And it's important for us to know, viewers, that we are part of this social process. And we have to be remembering one thing, that the mob violence affects all of us. The accidents and tragedies can happen. And that's when we have to take a step of a proactive kind in reaching out to our politicians to not abuse and not drive the politics from an individualistic approach. If the policies of Democratic Party is driven towards hatred for Trump, they will end up in a mess. And the point is that this is a very seminal moment in the life of this country as well, because the riots have happened in the past. Racial injustice has existed. The question is, and I will ask this question of Joe Biden and everybody from Democratic Party, that 90% of the blacks vote for you. What have you done really? How come the blacks are still feeling betrayed, insufficient? And that's the reason why this rioting happened, protest happened, and protest was taken advantage of by rioters, hurting the innocent. Even Gray's brother sought peace. And he said, my brother didn't stand for this. But the rioters did not listen to that. And there is a very deeper conspiracy about this. We will talk some other time. Time is up, as the saying goes, time always ends for everything. So for this fabulous conversation, thank you very much, Deepak, for coming on the show today. Have a wonderful weekend. Let's all seek peace and dharma in our life.
Thank you.
Namaste.